Today we're going to look at how to name acids, so going from formula to name and name to formula. So something to keep in mind is that all acids start with a hydrogen. So the cation in all cases will be hydrogen, which has a +1 charge. We are going to treat acids like ionic compounds. So what that means for us is that we have to make them neutral. Okay, there are two types of acids. There are binary acids and ternary acids. Ternary acids are also called oxyacids. And so the difference between them is what makes them up. So a binary acid starts with that hydrogen cation and ends with a nonmetal. So this is going to be our cation and our nonmetal is going to be our anion. In a ternary or oxyacid, again we start with that hydrogen cation, but the polyatomic ion is going to be our anion. So let's just go through a few examples of each so you understand how to name and write formulas for each of them. So let's start with binary acids. So the format for all binary acids is that we put a hydro prefix, we put the root of the nonmetal, and end with "ic", and then put the word acid. So here are two examples for us. We have HCl, right? So we have our hydrogen cation, we have our nonmetal ion, and so we follow this format. We put hydro out in front, Cl is chlorine, so we get rid of the INE, put ic in its place, and put an acid at the end. So hydrochloric acid. All right, let's look at this example. H2S. So we start with a hydrogen, end with a sulfur. So we follow the same format. We put a hydro out in front. We put sulfur, ic, acid. So hydrosulfuric acid. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice. So here we have H3N. So, because it's a binary acid, meaning that we just have hydrogen and a nonmetal, we are going to start with the prefix hydro. Now, if we look at N, that is the element nitrogen. So we want to keep the root of our element. So hydro, nitric. So then we are going to add that IC, nitric acid. Prefix, root, suffix. All right, now let's go in the opposite direction. So this one's hydrobromic acid. So now we have to go from name to formula. So because it's an acid, we know that we're starting with hydrogen as our cation, so H+. If we look at our word, it's bromic. All right, so bro sounds like bromine. So this is going to be the element bromine. So if we go to our periodic table, because of the group that bromine is in, remember it has a -1 charge. So hydrogen has a +1 charge, bromide has a -1 charge. So if we add those together, it equals 0. So HBr is going to be our formula. Okay? Hydroselenic acid. So because it's an acid, we know that it's starting with an H+. Selenic sounds like selenium. So we have Se. So again, we can go to our periodic table, and based on the spot that selenium is in, we know that it has a -2 charge. Well, because it has a -2 charge, when we add up a +1 and a -2, we don't get 0. So we have to make it neutral, and we do that by crisscrossing, just like we did for ionic compounds. So we have H2Se. So that right there is hydroselenic acid. Okay. On to ternary. So ternary is a little bit different, but it's not bad. It goes off of the ending of a polyatomic ion. So we know that polyatomic ions typically end in -ite or in -ate. So ite turns into OUS, and ate turns into ick. Something to notice here is we do not use hydro. Hydro is only for binary acids, okay? So we're going to use this format to help us come up with our names. So here's our example. Let's say I have HClO3. Well, we know it's an acid because we're starting with hydrogen. So then I look up ClO3 on my list of polyatomic ions. So ClO3 is chlorate. So here I have an ATE ending, so I go to 8 and it becomes ick. So I drop the 8, so it becomes chloric acid. That's it. All right, so here I have H3PO3. All right, so if we're looking at our list here, 8 is the normal number of oxygens in a polyatomic ion. Per 8 is 1 more oxygen. Ite is 1 less oxygen. And hypoite is 2 less oxygens. And they're all relating to the 8. Okay. So PO3, I don't see on my list of polyatomic ions, but I see something that's similar, and that's PO4 -3, which is phosphate. So because this is 1 less, 8 was the normal, that was PO4. So 1 less means that this was phosphite instead of phosphate. So because I have an ATE ending, an ITE ending, it becomes an OUS ending. So this one's going to become phosphorus acid. Ite to us. All right, let's practice. So here we have sulfuric acid. Because it is an acid, I know that it starts with hydrogen, which has a +1 charge. Okay, so sulfuric. Now kind of working backwards, I know that ick came from 8. Ick came from 8. So that means that this was sulfate. So I go to my list of polyatomic ions and I find sulfate, which is right here. And that is SO4 with a -2 charge. Well, now I have to make it neutral. So I crisscross. H2SO4. All right, last one. Let's go in the opposite direction. So I want to go from formula to name. So I know it's an acid because we have a hydrogen out in front. And then I need to look up NO2 to figure out the name of it. NO2 is nitrite. So I go to my list and I see that ite turns to us. So it's going to be nitrous acid. That's it.